tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to Cypherfics. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fifth part of, What If Harry Potter Meets High School DxD. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of Asian Lion Heart 310 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was the day they all waited, the day of the rating game, the day Harry will fight against Rias' fiancé, Rias or Phoenix, or Frying Turkey, your choice. Rias and her peerage were now far stronger than they used to be 10 days ago. All of them, thanks to Muerte's harsh and sadistic training sessions, were now confident that they could take down Rias and his peerage. Harry was proud of his friends, and Issei even surprised him when he used his sacred gear's power, which literally destroyed the top of a mountain. The brunette boy pushed himself to his limits with the help of Rias and the many creatures he had to fight against. Every night, the group collapsed in exhaustion, grumbling about sadistic teachers, annoying classmates and tortures. Rias, herself had to train after receiving a good talk with Muerte. Harry had admitted that the redhead was good and seemed to have grown attached to a certain brown-haired idiot. While he was shocked that Rias would choose Issei as a possible boyfriend, he had to admit that wouldn't be so bad together. A smirk grew on his face each time he thought about how the students of Kuo Academy would react at the sight of them, hand upon hand, entering the school ground. The scandal. Now it was the night of the rating game, and Harry and the Devils were now in the club room of the Occult Research Club's building as the only source of light came from the candles. As he watched his friends, Harry was happy to notice that despite their obvious nervousness, they were showing nothing but determination. Muerte's arena was hard and terrific. They all had to fight different types of creatures in order to survive: skeletons, giant rats, ogres, werewolves, a sight that reminded Harry of the night he met Muerte for the first time, giant snakes, centaurs, etc. But despite the harshness of the trainings, it proved to be good for them. In addition, Muerte had added a little bonus to her arena. Those 10 days seemed like 10 months. Thanks to this, the Devils had all the time in the world to become stronger and didn't complain at first. Issei was the first one to rebel until Muerte sent a chimera to chase him down for a couple of minutes, to the general's amusement. Akeno had even been reprimanded for not using her hidden abilities, and Rias' queen had been angry and shocked at first but slowly started to become more accepting of her fallen angel's heritage. The raven-haired beauty then wholeheartedly accepted it when she saw how proud Harry looked at her, as their relationship between the two had improved greatly. Rainier had shown no jealousy toward having Akeno in their little HRM, but nothing was still sure for Ophis, but internally, he was sure she would be fine. After all, she accepted Rainier, so why not Akeno? Back to present, the crushed silence was stopped when the front door opened to reveal Sona and Tsubaki. Raising an eyebrow, Harry stared at the newcomer with curiosity, wondering what they wanted. "I'm sorry if I'm interrupting," Sona said neutrally. "Oh no, please come in," Rias retorted back in equal tone. "I'm glad you could make it out," Akeno remarked from her place as she stared at the newcomer. "Lady Sona, Lady Tsubaki, not that you are not welcome or anything, but may I ask what are young doing here?" Harry asked them politely with a respectful nod of his head. "There's a live broadcast of the competition so family members can watch, and besides, this is Rias' first rating game, I wouldn't miss it for anything," Sona answered back to the green-eyed young lord, still in a neutral tone. Harry nodded at her in understanding. While Rias and Sona were rivals, the two of them were still friends. Suddenly, a bright red circle and the maid lady from 10 days ago stepped out of it. What was her name again? Oh right, Graphia, Lucifer's husband. "It's almost time. I hope you are ready for this, milady." "Yes, we are, whenever you are," Rias replied back to the silver-haired woman. "In a few moments, we will use this magic circle to transport you and the rest of your team to the battlefield." "And where is the battlefield exactly?" Issei asked her stupidly, and before Harry could respond, Akeno stepped in. In an alternate space created just for the game. Hearing this, Harry couldn't help but raise an eyebrow at the answer. Strangely, it sounded like how Muerte's arena was made. Maybe it is the same spell. Probably. Tsubaki and myself will be in the student council broadcast room. We will be cheering for you guys. Sona inquired with a soft smile. Thanks Sona, just try to keep the play-by-play fair, Rias retorted to her rival friend. Oh, but I will. But if I was betting on this game, I'd say you are about to beat that friend chicken 7 ways to Sunday. Harry chuckled in amusement at those words as Sona and her queen left the clubroom. He looked back to stare at Gryffindor, who opened her mouth to say more. There's something else you should know. Everyone stared at her with curiosity, wondering what she was about to say next. The great devil, Lucifer, will be watching the game. Hearing this, Rias groaned in defeat before rubbing her face with hand while saying softly, "Oh brother dearest." Harry couldn't help but staring at the redhead with compassion. From what he heard, Surzek's Lucifer was what people would call a freakish siscon, and Rias would do anything to be away from him. Don't get her wrong, she loved her older brother, but his antics were very annoying. Are you saying that Rias' brother is the devil, or am I just hearing things? Issei asked his comrades, with a bit of surprise on his face as well as confusion. No, Rias's brother is Lucifer, the king of all devils, Kiba answered neutrally to the pawn, who gasped along with Asia. Issei opened his mouth to say something when he realized the lack of surprise on Harry's face. You knew, didn't you? Harry shot him a glance before sighing. Yes. Who told you? Kiba asked him with surprise as everyone stared at the green-eyed young lord with interest and curiosity, even Gryffindor. Muerte told me, Rias told me, Akeno told me, oh, and my first girlfriend told me as well. Everyone looked away from Harry to stare at Rias' queen, who looked away with embarrassment as her cheek tainted red while Rias rubbed the back of her head with a hint of embarrassment. She had forgotten about that. I also know that his name is Surzek, and he is a big siscon from what Akeno and Rias told me at least. Akeno's cheeks as well as Rias's reddened even more when they received more stares from the other devils present. But then a red magical circle appeared again and Harry knew I was time. It's time everyone, Gryffindor inquired to them before looking at a certain young lord. I hope you are ready to fight Riser on your own. Harry's only response was a smirk which instantly caused some to shiver in fright. The last time they saw it was when he attempted to burn Issei after the idiot looked at Akeno's melons a bit too much. Alright, let's go, Rias quickly said in an attempt to change the subject, and everyone stepped onto the circle. Harry suddenly felt the same feeling that when he used Portkeys or House Elf's apparition, but the feeling quickly disappeared when he noticed that they were still in the same room. He wanted so badly to stare at Gryffindor with a deadpan expression, but he wisely chose to say nothing as looks can be deceiving. Guys, we are still in the same room, Issei inquired to his comrade with a confused look on his face. No, we've actually transported to an alternative space. It looks the same as our school, I'm afraid, Kaneko replied with a neutral tone. I'm impressed, Kaneko-chan. It's the longest sentence you made so far. Harry inquired his Otoko teasingly, and he received a glare from the petite white-haired girl while the others smiled in amusement. However, the moment was broken when they heard Gryffindor's voice echoing in the air. But it sounded as if she was talking through a megaphone or something. Your attention please. Here we go, Harry commented softly as he stood beside Issei, who seemed nervous. Welcome everyone. My name is Gryffindor. I'm a servant of the House of Gremory and I will be your referee in today's match. To create the battlefield you will be competing in, I took suggestions from both Lady Rias and Lord Riser. You may recognize the place as an exact replica of KUOH Academy. Well, at least we won't have to remember the battlefield as we already know it, Harry inquired to his comrades and friends, who all nodded in agreement. Each team has been given an area which will serve as their home base. Lady Rias, your base will be the Occult Research Club headquarters in the old school home. Lord Riser's home base will be the principal office in the new schoolhouse. Pawns will be able to be promoted when they reach the opposite team's home base. Good luck to all. Then Gryffindor's voice stopped. I will fight my way to their home base right out of the gate, get promoted to something awesome and beat Lord Duschnossel. Issei inquired in an angry tone as the group made their way to their home base. Harry rolled his eyes with a sigh before punching the top of the brunette's head. Ow! Why did you do that? 1. Because you were getting cocky. 2. Because you cannot just head into someone else's home base without a proper strategy. Finally, because Riser is mine. Issei opened his mouth to retort but someone beat him to it. Kiba. Harry-kun is right. You must be smarter about what you do. Odds are, Riser will send his pawns into our territory right at the start. Then we must take care of them first, Harry inquired seriously and the blonde knight nodded at him in agreement. That's the plan, Rias agreed with Harry's suggestion but then Kaneko gave everyone a little something, a small piece of light in appearance. Here this will help communicate with each other, the petite girl inquired neutrally to her comrades and Harry patted her head in thanks. Harry then saw Rias pulling out a map of school to discuss the battle plan as her whole peerage gathered around her. The enemy's base is just across the way. Cutting through the school grounds might be quick but sadly it's not an option, Rias inquired to her peerage with a serious look on her pretty face. They will see us coming a while away. Kaneko inquired in an equal tone. If we go through the battlefield and sneak in the back then we might have the element of surprise, Issei remarked from his place. But that's the most obvious plan to think of. Riser is smart. I'm sure he will be prepared for that. Rias retorted in response before adding seriously. My best is that he will probably station a group of knights and rooks with strong mobility right behind the athletic clubhouse. That doesn't leave us with many options, Kaneko inquired in an almost defeated tone. When Harry heard it, he decided to step in. There is always a way to defeat an opponent. They always had weaknesses so if we manage to find it then victory is ours, he inquired to the group strongly. Riser already won many raiding games except the ones he lost on purpose. It must have boosted his confidence, Kiba inquired after a moment of deep thought. We all saw how arrogant he is. I'm sure he is thinking that he will win no matter what but he doesn't know how strong you've got thanks to your training. You can give him the shock of his life by eliminating him for the first time. Harry inquired to his allies who all nodded in agreement. Yes. We are not what we were 10 days ago. We are better. Issei retorted in agreement of Harry's words. The young lord smiled at the brunette boy before looking over at Rias who was smiling at them. If I may. The redhead nodded at him in answer, giving him her permission to speak. Remember that a well-balanced battle plan needs to cover everyone's weaknesses. Example, if Riser is smart, which I doubt given how of an idiot he is, then I'm pretty sure he won't send both his rooks at the same place. He will send them to different area and back it with a few pawns. Then we need to secure the gymnasium first. It's the center of the field so whoever claims it first will be at a big advantage. Kiba inquired after a seconds of contemplation. I think Issei and Kaneko should defend the gymnasium. They are some of the strongest of you. Kiba is the quickest so he should take down wandering Riser's pieces as diversion and Akeno can look for Riser's queen. What about me? Rias inquired the young lord with a frown as she hadn't been mentioned. Don't take me wrong Rias, but while I know you are become more powerful than when we met, it's not a good idea to leave you openly on the battlefield or once everyone is taken down you can help Akeno in defeating Riser's queen. Rias went deep in thought before looking back at him. I would rather fight with my peerage but all right. Harry nodded at her before turning to look at Issei when the brunette said those words. And what will you do Harry-kun? I'm not a member of your peerage. I was allowed to come because I challenged the frying chicken. Once his peerage is down, I will take care of him. However, it doesn't mean I won't help you. The devils looked at him with confusion. I will stay here in case a member of Riser's peerage tried to enter and in addition here a little something for you. He handed them different bags filled with objects. What is it? Rias asked him with curiosity as she picked up one of the bags. Oh, nothing serious, just holy water. What? What? It can help you in case you have trouble but deep down I think you won't need it. The devils, at first hesitant, agreed to use the holy water. But then Asia's voice caught everyone's attention. What about me, Oni-san? I don't want to fight. Harry sent her a gentle smile before patting her head comfortingly. Don't worry, little one, you won't. You will stay here with Riri and heal those who are injured. Asia nodded with a bright smile, happy that she won't have to participate in the fight, while Rias was glaring daggers at Harry for called her Riri, but didn't comment on it. You know what? I don't like staying there and do nothing, so I will just go to the gym, Harry remarked after a moment of thought. Hearing the devils all sighed in relief, Harry was the most powerful one in this piece, so if he was at the gym then they had a better chance to win this game. Also, I just thought of something, we might not surprise them but we can still have fun and slow them with traps and some pranks. Seeing the mischievous grin on the young lord's face, the devils returned it. Meanwhile, in the stage, many devils were waiting for the raiding game to begin. A lot of pureblood families were there, and among them were Rias's parents as well as Risers. Even Surzex was there. I still don't understand why our daughter doesn't want to marry young Riser, Zeoticus Gremory, Rias's father sighed under his breath. Maybe because she doesn't like how arrogant and despotic he is with his peerage, Surzex Lucifer inquired to his father in a serious tone. Oh please, they are just rumors. And while I agree young Riser has an ego, I'm sure he is not that bad and Rias might be able to lead him into a better way. Surzex looked at his father sadly before shaking his head and looking away. There was no point in trying to change Zeoticus's opinion. His wife, Venelana, didn't seem to entirely agreeing with her husband. Unlike the rest of the Gremory clan, she didn't have the traditional red hair but brown one. Graphia then opened her mouth to declare the opening of the game when a portal made of pure shadows appeared nearby, causing every devils present to look at it with surprise. But when a pink-haired woman stepped out of it with a long black dress, the elder devils all froze in shock and panic. Lady Death? Surzex called out in stupor and fear, and when those words left his mouth, every devil stared at the newcomer with terror and fright, trying their best to back away from the primordial deity. After all, it wasn't every day that Death herself came to hell. Muerte looked at the current Lucifer with a smile, which scared everyone to the core, before opening her mouth to respond. Surzex, it's been a long time. Mima Lady WH, what are you doing here? Graphia asked her as she shivered in fear, her eyes wide in terror. Every creatures on earth feared death, and devils were no exceptions. I came to see my nephew, of course. Muerte's answer caused some devils to whisper with each other, and Surzex frowned in confusion. He didn't know Death had a nephew. Then another Mao, Seraphal Leviathan, stepped forward to speak. She was a appealing girl who looked to be in her late teens with black hair, tied into twin tails and pink eyes. She was also Sona's elder sister. Milady, may we know who is your nephew? Seraphal flinched when Muerte's eyes landed on her, and some devils were growing concerned as they all thought that the current Leviathan had offended the pink-haired deity. But nothing happened as Muerte calmly answered her question, but with a soft smile on her face. It's Lord Peveril Gryffindor Ravenclaw Slytherin Emery's Lefay. At those words, Graphia's eyes widened in shock as she had met the young lord in question and couldn't believe that he was Death's nephew. Surzex was also surprised as his wife had told him about the young man in question and what he did that day. He wanted to meet the guy who had defended his little sister, but now he had a new reason to meet him. Some devils were speaking with each other in shock and surprise at the news, some were even talking about marrying the guy with their daughters. Seraphal couldn't help but daydream about him as many questions entered her mind. How was he? Was he handsome? Was he cute? Was he single? And where is the young man? It would be an honor to meet him, Venelana Gremory inquired the deity in a respectful manner. After all, if Rias managed to beat Riser, maybe they could get this young man to marry her instead. You will meet him later, but I will only tell you one thing. He is currently down there with your daughter, Muerte responded with a grin as she sat not too far from them. Hearing this, many devils became curious as to why Death's nephew was with the Gremory heiress and her peerage. Some were even thinking that he was one of the chess pieces. Graphia, like her husband, knew why he was down there and sighed deeply before saying loudly through the megaphone/speaker. Let the raiding game begin. Back to the Occult Research Club home base, they were whispering their last battle plan when they heard Graphia's voice. Harry smiled at his group before saying, "Good luck guys and don't die on me," the young lord inquired teasingly before disappearing by using shadows. The devils rolled their eyes at him with amusement but wished him good luck as well before they all went to different locations with Rias and Asia staying in the base. The latter used magic to form a dome of protection around the base to prevent those who weren't from their group to enter. Harry reappeared near the gymnasium and, without waiting for Kaneko and Issei, he entered inside only to end up facing 5 people, a pair of green-haired twins with chainsaws in their hands. Wait, what? A young girl with blue hair and brown eyes with a staff, a young woman of Chinese descent with shoulder-length black hair and blue-green eyes, and finally a appealing young girl with dark blue eyes. She has long blonde hair tied into twin tails with large, drill-like curls and blue ribbons keeping them in place. The last one had a strong resemblance to Riser. Were they related? If that's so, what was she doing in his peerage? Harry internally fumed in anger. Was Riser into NCST? Disgusting. But then his thoughts were interrupted when the Chinese girl spoke. Well, look, who is it, the human who dared to challenge our king? Harry ignored how she said the word human as he was looking at them with a stern glare. You know, usually I hate to hurt ladies, but I'm sure you won't give me a choice. No, we are not, I'm afraid, the blue-haired girl responded almost in disappointment. You know, the first time I saw you, I had to admit I was interested by you until you proven to not be a devil. I felt disdain for you, but then you unleashed this pressure on us. It was interesting to say the least, and I also admired how you protected Rias. I admire that, but sadly I cannot allow you to win. Why would you want to help a prick like him? He is arrogant, had no respect for women, and is ready to do anything to get what he wants. Harry retorted calmly as shadows started to envelop his arms. Because he is my brother. Harry's eyes widened at those words, but then shock turned into anger. He made his own sister into a member of his peerage. He shouted in pure anger as the air was becoming more and more tense. The girls all flinched at the sudden outbursts, and some of them were afraid that he would use the pressure against them again, but it didn't came. Why? Why such a cute and appealing girl like you accepted to do his bindings? To be a member of his peerage? The blonde girl's cheeks reddened at the compliments but then became a bit sad at the questions. I don't have a choice, I'm not strong enough to do things on my own. Harry, hearing this, felt bad for her, and his expression softened as he looked at her. Not strong enough? If you aren't, then train. What do you think Rias and her peerage did to get ready for today? Sleeping on couches and watching TV. You are born a devil and yet you think you can't make it on your own. The blonde girl was speechless as her eyes were still locked on his with surprise and shock. The other girls, however, were getting impatient. The first ones to attack were the twins, who charged him with their chainsaws. Seriously, why have they been allowed to keep them was a mystery. Harry shot them a bored look before spreading his arms to the side. The moment the twins were a few feet away from him, they were pushed away by an invisible force which knocked them back. You shouldn't have done that, Harry inquired coldly before his body was enveloped into darkness with only his green eyes shining with power. Then, to their shock, the shadow rushed toward them at incredible speed before attacking the twins with swift and deadly strikes. Injured, the two were sent away. 2 of Riser's pawns retired. The remaining girls stared at Harry with shock at what just happened. In the stages, the spectators were equally shocked by what they just seen, except Muerte, who smiled proudly at her nephew in all but BLD. Now whose turn is it? Harry asked the 3 remaining girls. However, they didn't have the time to answer when Kaneko and Issei appeared. You took your time, Harry inquired to them without turning his head away from the 3 girls from Riser's peerage. Hey Harry-kun. Need some help? Issei asked the young lord as he prepared himself for a fight. No, stay back, I will handle this, Harry responded in a stern tone which caused the others to flinch in slight fear. The blonde girl then froze when green eyes landed on her again. Milady, I'm willing to give you a choice, if you still believe that you are unable to get stronger then attack me, otherwise leave and train to become more than you are. The blonde girl went deep in thought for a moment, ignoring the looks she was receiving from the others. Then she took a deep breath before looking back at Harry with a smile. "Thank you, Lord Peveril," the blonde girl inquired with a small bow, and he nodded at her in response before watching as she left the area. But, then she stopped in her tracks to look back at him before saying with a smile, "Just so you know, my name's Ravel Phoenix." "It was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, milady," Harry replied with a polite bow which caused her to blush slightly before she left. One of Riser's bishop renounced. "What do you think you are doing, Ravel?" The Chinese girl screamed at the retreating form of Ravel. "Get back here at once," the other one shouted angrily with a scowl. "She made her choices, now what will be yours?" Harry asked them coldly as his fists were enveloped into shadows. "I'm gonna kill you," the Chinese girl roared out as she charged him angrily. Harry, however, stayed calm and raised his left arm slightly. Kaneko and Issei saw with shock his nails turning into sharp claws before pouncing like a cat on his opponent. Screams echoed in the air as the Chinese girl was cut up by numerous light-speed slashes. She landed on the ground, covered with many injuries before disappearing. One of Riser's rook retired. The remaining girl, the blue-haired one, stared in shock and terror at what she just witnessed, while Kaneko and Issei were just as surprised. While they knew Harry was strong, but they hadn't expected this. What are you?" the blue-haired girl asked him as she backed away. Harry grinned at her as his canines grew a bit. "You're defeater," the green-eyed teen answered darkly before extending a hand forward. Suddenly a ball of darkness erupted from his hand before flying straight toward the blue-haired girl, who didn't have time to react when the shadowy ball crashed against her stomach hard. The blow caused her to gasp in pain before falling unconscious. Seconds later, her corpse disappeared. One of Riser's pawns retired. Harry sighed before turning around to look at Kaneko and Issei, who were gaping at him. "Why the looks, guys? Dude, you were awesome." "Thanks, but it's not over." Just as those words escaped his mouth, a familiar voice echoed through the piece of light Kaneko gave earlier. "Harry, Issei, Kaneko, what's your status?" "Hey Riri, the gymnasium is ours." "Good news. Keep going on like this and we will win." "Understood, see you later, Riri." "Don't call me Riri." Harry laughed loudly in response, completely amused and not at all scared by Rias' angry outburst. "You heard the redhead? Come on." Kaneko and Issei nodded their heads before the three of them left the gymnasium. "I wonder how is Kiba?" Harry asked out loud to no one in particular. As if the world heard him, Graphia's voice rang on. "Three of Riser's pawns retired." "Well, look like this answer my question," Harry grumbled with a deadpan expression while Kaneko and Issei went away to who nowhere. Sighing deeply, Harry then decided to hide in the shadows, waiting for Riser to appear. Suddenly, he heard an explosion coming from where Kaneko was heading and went there as fast as he could. When he arrived, he saw with horror, his Otoko laying on the ground unconscious with her clothes ripped apart. "No," Harry commented as he picked her up, "Kaneko-chan, wake up." Then he heard laughs coming from nearby and turned his head to see the purple-haired woman he saw 10 days ago. Glaring at her, he then heard a little voice coming from the being in his arms. "Otoko. Kaneko-chan." She wanted to say more, but her body slowly disappeared from sight. Rias's rook retired. But Harry didn't hear Graphia's voice. Why would he? He was far too angry to care, and slowly he turned his head to look at the smug-looking purple-haired woman. He didn't even notice Issei until he heard his voice. "DxD. You killed Kaneko. Get down there and deal with me." Harry shot him a proud glance. While he was a big perv, the brunette boy had proven that he had a good heart. That's why he kept him as a friend and tolerated, albeit slightly, his perversity. "Issei, leave. Find Kiba. I will deal with this." "Are you sure?" "Yes. Now go." Issei seemed hesitant but then nodded with determination before running away as fast as he could, leaving behind Harry and the purple-haired bee. The young lord then turned his head away from Issei to look at the woman before him, the one who attacked Kaneko-chan, his little Otoko. You know, it's a shame I have to kill you, a young man as handsome as you, but I have to do what my king wants. Don't get too cocky, milady, I'm not that easy to take down, not without a fight. I'm sure you aren't after your little display the last time we met. It would be foolish of me to deny you are weak. Then may I have the name of the one I'm about to fight against? Harry asked her politely with contained anger. My name's Yubaluna and I'm Lord Riser's queen. His queen, huh? That mean you must be powerful. Oh, but I am. Let's find out about that, shall we? And in the name of gallantry, I will let you attack first. Oh my! Aren't a gentleman? Yubaluna asked with ravishment before adding, but if that what you want then. But the moment she was about to attack, lightnings crashed against her, causing her to scream in pain. Harry glanced at where the lightnings came from to see none other than Akeno, who looked pissed. No one touch Harry-kun but me. Harry blushed slightly at those words but then coughed in his fist to get her attention. Akeno-senpai. What are you doing here? Rias sent me. Now leave. Go find Riser and end this. I will take care of this trash. How exciting. I've been waiting for an opportunity to battle you for a long time, Priestess of Thunder. Yubaluna inquired as she went back on her feet, facing her fellow queen. Well then I will leave you be, I have a frying chicken to kill anyway, Harry inquired with a cheeky grin before dashing away. Harry-kun. Can you hear me? Rias's voice echoed suddenly through the piece of light. Yes. Good. Asia and me are about to do the sneak attack on Riser's base. Care to join us if you aren't busy? I will try my best, Riri. He chuckled in amusement when he heard growls instead of Rias' voice. Then he made his way toward the principal office as fast as he could. But then he had to stop when he heard noises in the distance. He was about to head there when he heard Graphia's voice again. Riser's rook retired. One of Riser's knights retired. Riser's 2 remaining pawns retired. Look like there aren't many left, Riser, you are about to lose this fight it seems, Harry said to himself, and was about to head to where the heiress Gremory went when he saw something at the top of the school building, Rias, Asia and Riser. His eyes widened in shock at what he saw and was about to head there when he stopped dead in his track. Should I end this myself or let them have some fun? He asked to himself when suddenly, he heard an explosion coming from where Akeno and Yubaluna were fighting and saw the purple-haired girl crashing against the ground. She tried to get up when a holy lighting fell on her like wave on sand. A scream of pain escaped the Purple Queen's voice before she fell unconscious. Riser's queen retired. Rias's queen retired. Wait, what? Akeno, Harry whispered with sadness, but then took a deep breath before looking back toward where Rias, Asia and Riser were. The frying turkey was there. If he went down, then the game was over and Rias would be free to marry whoever she want. Ignoring Graphia's voice stating that Riser's second knight was down, Harry grinned as he used his shadow power to hide from view, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike his prey. At the same time, Asia and Rias were still facing the arrogant blonde who was looking at them with a sneer. You should renounce Rias. As long as Riser still stand, then Riser will win. I will always win. Issei Hayadu reporting on duty. Hearing this, Asia and Rias turned their heads to see the brunette boy approaching them. How did he get there so fast was beyond me. Issei. You made it. Rias said with joy on her face as she looked at her pawn. Count me in too. Kiba said as he approached the group. Riser's eyes narrowed in anger before shooting a beam of fire at them. Thankfully, they managed to avoid it before glaring dagger at the Phoenix boy. Don't you see that it is impossible for you to win? You are just delaying the inevitable. Riser inquired arrogantly as he looked at the group before him. Suddenly Rias used her powers to cut his arm, but it grew back to normal. If you think that I'll give up, then you don't know me so well. The redhead retorted to him with a serious look mixed with determination. Suddenly, Issei charged the blonde man, but Riser blocked his attack with his bare hands before blasting him with fire, sending him flying back toward Rias and the others. Issei, stop, you are not strong enough to take him. Rias inquired him with concern. However, Issei didn't listen and attacked Riser again using his boost, but like earlier, the Phoenix guy sent him flying. You should give up, lowlife. You are no match for Riser. And where is the supposed Lord Peveril? As he fled. Hey, frying chicken. Riser turned his head to see who had called him with such a nickname, only for something to crash into him, sending both him and his attacker below. Who did it? Answer, Harry. While he was hiding, the young lord saw Issei attacking the Phoenix boy and wanted to slap himself for how stupid it was, but hey, he had to admit the brunette had guts. However, when he noticed that Issei was easily being pushed down, Harry summoned his shadowy wings before flying toward the building. Once in the sky, he flied straight toward Riser as fast as he could, like a falcon headed to its prey, before barreling into him. The impact sent Riser and him far away from the building before the two of them crashed HRD on the ground. Without letting Riser the time to recover, Harry instantly kicked him hard enough to send him against a tree, knocking him down. Harry went back on his feet, staring at the unconscious body of Riser Phoenix with a glare as he summoned his shadowy wings. No one mess with my family. He snarled at the unmoving body before walking away. He walked back toward the building, but then stopped when he saw Rias and the others rushing toward him with Issei, who looked tired but fine. Where is he? The redhead asked him once the group reached the young lord. Who? The frying turkey? Right there, and thank you for your concern about my well-being. Harry nonchalantly pointed at the unconscious body of Riser before saying the last part with sarcasm. Rias looked at Harry sheepishly, but she didn't seem apologetic in the sightless. Does this mean we won? Issei asked the others with growing happiness. Yes. Rias shouted with pure joy, and everyone started cheering just as Graphia's voice echoed again. Riser is unable to fight. Rias and her team win. Harry smiled with joy as he watched Rias and her peerage, or what was left right now, cheering for their victory. But then he felt it, a strong killing intent coming from his right, and turned his head to see Riser slowly getting back on his feet with a look of pure rage aimed at him. No. It's impossible. Riser cannot lose, he screamed loudly, which caught the attention of Rias and her peerage. Face it, bud. You lost fair and square. Issei retorted with a smug look, and his fellow devils nodded in agreement. If I cannot have Rias, then no one will. Riser shouted loudly with anger before creating a large ball of fire and firing it toward them. However, the moment it was about to reach them, it was swallowed by what looked like a portal of shadow, and they turned their heads to see Harry, who an extended arm, his eyes completely green in color. When he clenched his hand, the portal disappeared along with the ball of fire. Riser. If you want to hurt them, you will have to go through me. Harry snarled at him anger as he placed himself between the angered blonde man and his friends. You. Everything, it's your fault. Rias was supposed to be mine and you ruined everything. Rias is not an object you can control, you know. She is a living being with feelings like the rest of her peerage. You present yourself as a peacock, but you are nothing more than a disgusting piece of trash, throwing a tantrum because you didn't get what you wanted. In the stage, Lord and Lady Phoenix were saddened by their youngest son's attitude, as it was partially their faults if he was like this. Lord and Lady Gremory, for their part, were feeling nothing but remorse as they realized that they made a huge mistake in trying to marry their daughter to this young man. Lord Lucifer, for his part, was looking at the young green-eyed man with respect, and Graphia couldn't help but feeling the same. The other devils were conflicted about what to feel at the moment. They had seen this young man taking down members of Riser's peerage as easily as if they were flies, and was right now insulting him openly. Some of the high-ranked families were, however, still interested in the possibility in marrying him with their daughters. Being devils, they were interested in gaining more power. Seraphal Leviathan, for her part, was looking at Death's nephew with a soft smile. He was strong, handsome and interesting young man. Ravel Phoenix, Riser's younger sister, was saddened by her brother's attitude but couldn't help but admire the black-haired young man for his audacity and his loyalty. Muerte was proud of her little MSTR as she sat beside Cerzex and Serafal. She couldn't wait for Riser to get a rightful punishment. One thing was sure, Harry wouldn't be kind with him. Harry valued family more than his own life. She knew it since the day she started to train him. He wanted to have a big family one day, and she secretly helped him as best as she could by sending him Office, for example. Back to the arena, Riser was getting more and more angered as he glared daggers at the young man before him who had the gall to belittle him. Riser Phoenix. A son of the Phoenix, the legendary bird of fire. How dare you mock me, lowlife? Haven't you been taught how to speak to your betters? My better? You. Don't make me laugh. You are nothing but a spoiled child and pathetic excuse of a man. Harry snarled back in anger as his body slowly covered itself with shadow. That's it. I will kill you first. And when I'm done with you, I will take what is rightfully mine. Don't sell the lion's skin until you kill it. Harry roared back as he readied himself in case the other attacked him. Rias. You and the other get out of here. I will take care of the frying chicken. Are you sure? Yes, go. Rias nodded before creating a red circle where she and her peerage disappeared through. Once they left, Harry turned back to look at Riser, who was charging him with a battle cry. The green-eyed young lord dodged his attack before punching his opponent's gut, earning a pained groan from Riser, who jumped away. Come on, Riser. Show me what you've got. Unless you are nothing more than a pathetic coward. It was the last straw. Enough. Riser yelled out in pure rage as wings of fire appeared on his back. Harry smirked before summoning his own wings. He flapped them twice before looking back at Riser with a grin. Come on, chicken brain. Or would you prefer frying turkey? Growling in annoyance and anger, Riser charged his enemy's shooting ball of fire through his hands. Harry flied in the air, dodging his opponent's attacks with an amused grin on his face. Harry then created a barrage of shadowy spears before launching them toward his enemy, who tried to defend himself. Riser successfully managed to destroy some of them with his fire, but 4 of them pierced his skin, earning a pained scream from him. The shadowy weapons hurted him, and slowly he pulled them out of his body, grunting in pain. Thanks to his Phoenix heritage, his wounds instantly healed, or else he would have been problematic to keep fighting. Looking back toward his opponents, Riser was taken aback when he saw Harry's hands covered with fire. You like fire, Riser? Then have a taste of mine. The green-eyed young lord pushed his hands forward, and from them came out a large ball of fire which took the form of a roaring lion. Once it went straight toward Riser, whose eyes widened in shock until a scream of agony came out of his mouth once the fiery lion crashed against him. On the stage, the devils all watched this with wide eyes of shock and stupor. Cerzex, however, was also curious about this and turned his head to ask the only person present who could answer him, the boy's aunt. Milady. I know what you want to ask, Cerzex, so don't waste your breath. Harry is a MSTR in elemental magic, especially with fire and shadow. But why a lion? You'll see, was her only response. I didn't know Harry-kun could do that, Kiba whispered in amazement as he looked at the black-haired young lord. It seems they are equal in power. This fight will take time, Issei inquired as Asia was healing him with her sacred gear. They are not equals. Everyone turned their heads to look at Muerte, who had a smirk on her face as her eyes were still locked on Harry. What do you mean, milady? Serafal asked the deity with a bit of confusion, and the others listened closely, curious about her answer. Harry is toying with him. He is not using his full potential. He is just playing. This was not the answer they expected. Every devils, even Cerzex, widened their eyes as they looked back at Harry. Rias frowned as she looked at the young lord's face, and she instantly realized that Harry looked indeed amused if the smirk on his face was any indications. If that true, milady, then why isn't he trying to end this fight quickly? As I said, because he wants to have fun, and you'll understand why if you watch the show," Muerte inquired to the others before using her power to summon some popcorns. The devils looked unsatisfied by her answer but couldn't do anything, because if they did try to force her to answer, they would be all destroyed. So they looked away from the pink-haired woman to look back at the fight. In the arena, Harry was feeling nothing but boredom. Riser's utilization of fire and wind was impressive, but the blonde guy was too stupid to realize that by using too much of his power he would tire himself. "Why can't you die already?" The Phoenix boy screamed in pure fury as he unleashed a gigantic ball of flame toward Harry. However, the young lord didn't move and didn't even try to protect himself as the ball crashed against him. "Harry!" The Occult Research Club and the Student Council students screamed in horror at the same time. "Now the fun begins," Muerte whispered with a dark grin as she ate another popcorn. Riser looked at the devastation he caused with a triumphant grin on his face before laughing loudly. "Look like I win, lowlife. No one insult Riser and stay alive." Asia's eyes were filled with tears while Kaneko was in complete shock. The rest of Rias' peerage were equally in shock at what just happened, and Akeno looked heartbroken. But then when they thought it was over. "Look!" Seraphal screamed in stupor as she pointed at where Harry previously stood. The devils all watched with frowns on their faces, and there, coming out of the smokes and ashes, was an unharmed Harry Potter whose shirt was completely destroyed, exposing his muscular bare chest. "What? How could you survive this? You are just a weak human." Riser roared in anger and shock as he looked at his opponent, who seemed perfectly fine. In the stage, all devils, old and young, were in total shock that this young man survived such an attack. Ravel's eyes sparkled with interest as she looked at the black-haired young lord, and internally she thought about asking him to train her. A weak human. That's new. I never saw myself as a human. I was never considered by one before, Harry whispered to himself softly before glaring daggers at Riser, who froze when he saw no pupils in those green orbs. "You disgusts me, Riser. Until now, I took this fight as a game, but now I'm done playing. It's time to be serious," Harry said with a coldness that caused more than one to shiver in fright. Before Riser could retort, Harry dashed toward him at high speed, and the blonde man gasped in pain when he received a huge punch in the stomach, knocking the air out of him. Then Harry used his other arm to punch Riser right on the face, sending him flying away. Riser rolled on the ground before crashing at the feet of a tree. Coughing some blood, the blonde man slowly went back on his feet before looking toward his opponent, who was slowly making his way toward him with a glare that could melt ice. Harry slowly raised his right arm and his nails turned into claws. Kaneko and Issei, seeing this, remembered the attack from earlier, but unlike before, those claws were covered with light but lightings which soon covered Harry's entire arm. Riser screamed when Harry's claws slashed him along with electric shock caused by them. "You received attacks from shadow, fire and thunder. Let's see how you can handle this," Harry inquired as he created a bow made of pure light. "What the hell?" Issei cried out in shock as he stared at this with wide eyes like the rest of the spectators. "A bow of light? How can that be?" one of the devils screamed in stupor from the assistants. Muerte ignored everyone as she eyed her little MSTR and nephew with a small grin. Surzex eyed the primordial deity and couldn't help but shiver at the expression on her face before looking back at the fight. This Lord Peveril was becoming more and more interesting. Rias and Sona, for their parts, had their eyes shining in pure admiration and silently thought about asking him to teach them this move along with their respective peerages. Back to the fight, Harry armed his bow with an arrow made equally of pure light before aiming it at Riser. Upon seeing this, the Phoenix boy used his wings of fire to fly away, but it proven to be futile when Harry shot the arrow which headed straight toward him. "What they are, gh?" Riser began to say before he was pierced by the arrow which traversed his body from back to front. Riser's eyes were wide in shock and pain as drops of blood came out of his mouth. Because of both shock and pain, Riser didn't reacted when he fell from the sky before crashing HRD on the ground. His wound took a bit more time to heal as devils were not immune against light attacks, but he had enough strength to turn his head to look at Harry, who was still standing where he previously was. The young lord then closed his eyes, focusing on something, and a few seconds later, his arms and hands were enveloped in a greenish aura. Reopening his eyes, he looked back toward Riser before pressing his hands against the floor with a battle cry. The second his hands touched the ground, a rock-like formation which looked like a lion head with open jaws rose from the ground. Riser watched in horror when the lion closed its jaws on him, crushing the rocks that formed. At the sight, many devils gasped in stupor because they never saw anything like this before. The elder ones, especially those who fought in the Great War, were speechless. Muerte giggled in amusement at the gaping faces surrounding her, especially from Harry's friends. Meanwhile, Harry went back on his feet before looking toward where Riser previously was. There was nothing but rocks until a figure slowly came out of the debris, Riser. His clothes were torn and partially destroyed, and he looked pretty tired for all the attacks he received. Riser panted deeply in exhaustion as his wounds healed themselves, but far slower than usual. He looked at his opponent with rage but also with fear, especially when his enemy slowly made his way toward him. "You know, chicken brain, I expected more from you, but it seems I was stupid to do so. You're weak." Hearing this, Riser charged him with a scream of rage as flames enveloped his fists. Harry sighed deeply before looking back at his opponent with a stern look as winds started to become more violent around them. But in his anger, Riser didn't notice it until his enemy raised his left arm forward. A bust of wind, a really strong and violent one, engulfed Riser, who instinctively covered his face with his arms. The Phoenix man was about to say something when the wind turned into a burst which sent him flying hard against a building while destroying everything in its path, trees, grasses, rocks. Nothing was spared by the powerful burst of wind. When Harry stopped his attack, he groaned in self-annoyance and embarrassment as he commented softly to himself. "I might have overdone myself there." Then a groan caught his attention and he saw Riser slowly coming out of the destroyed wall. He was no more wearing a shirt and his pants looked more like rags than anything. Harry watched as the man limped out of the large hole he accidentally made before facing him. What are you?" Riser asked him loudly as he panted deeply. He was clearly out of breath and Harry noticed how slow his wounds were taking to heal. "I told you, my name's Harry Peverell, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Emery's Lofay. Young English lord and friend of Rias Gremory, heiress of the Gremory clan." As he spoke, the green-eyed young lord approached the injured Phoenix man, who tried to look tough but failed due to tiredness and pain, thanks to Harry's attacks. "Stay back. Don't come closer," Riser ordered the man with an undertone of fear. Harry raised an eyebrow at this. Was Riser afraid of him? It seemed like it because of his wide eyes and the fact he was trying to back away from him. He didn't do much and the frying turkey was already afraid of him. Pathetic. Is that fear I'm hearing? Who would have thought that the great Riser Phoenix would be scared of a pathetic human? Hearing the irony in his voice, Riser's blood boiled with anger as he glared back at his black-haired opponent with nothing but hatred and rage. "Riser is not afraid of a freak like you." Silence followed those words as Harry froze dead in his tracks with a look of shock on his face. In the stage, the devils were confused by his sudden action except those who knew his backstory. Kaneko looked at her Otoko with a hint of sadness while Asia openly showed her concern for her Oniai-san. "Lord Phoenix, Lady Phoenix, my condolences for your son," Muerte inquired to Riser's parents, who looked back at her with confusion. "Why are you saying this, milady?" Lord Phoenix inquired the deity with an undertone of fright in his voice. "Because Riser made a huge mistake and is about to receive a good beating." Riser's parents, hearing this, looked at the deity with horror while Ravel looked equally concerned by this answer before looking back at her brother, who was staring at his opponent with a smug grin on his face. Then, Harry, whose face was hidden by his hair, began to laugh and everyone shivered at how creepy and cold it sounded, like a madman's. Riser, however, gathered all his courage or his stupidity to yell his next words. "What is funny, punk? You called me a freak." "Yes. What's so funny about it?" The second this question left his mouth, Rias froze in shock when Harry suddenly appeared right in front of him. He wanted to say something else, but then he paled when he saw the most evil grin he ever saw on his enemy's face. "It's funny because of how right you are." Hearing this, everyone, even Rias, became confused while Muerte sighed sadly. While Harry made great progress in trying to move out of his previous life with the Dursleys, there were times where his past resurged and changed his mood totally. Rias made the big mistake of calling him a freak, a term his despicable relatives used to call him. Now he was doomed. And now, as those words left Harry's mouth, the devils saw with shock his body grew in size with fur starting to cover his skin. His muscles bulged drastically, earning some whistles of admiration from some girls, while a tail sprouted out of the back of his breath as his hands and feet turned into clawed ones. His head turned more feline-like as his hair grew to change into a long and large black mane. Rias's eyes widened in terror as he looked up at the 10-feet-tall muscular humanoid lion standing in front of him. The black creature grinned down at him toothily before saying with a deep growl-like voice, "You die." Rias barely had the time to react when a large black fist made contact with his chest. As if it wasn't enough, Harry had putted so much force in his punch that when Rias's face touched the ground, the impact created a large crater. The Werlion then roared loudly before barraging his fallen opponent with countless blows, showing no mercy. The devils on the stage were speechless of the scene taking place before them, while Muerte seemed indifferent. To her opinion, Harry was still holding back, but at least the show was entertaining. Rias and her peerage, while having seen this form before, were still shocked by what they were saying. Asia, being the only one of the occult research club, who hadn't seen Harry in this form, was looking at her Oni-san with wide eyes of amazement, fear and curiosity. Sona and her peerage were speechless at the sight. Unlike Rias and the others, the council student didn't have the chance to see Harry in this form and were shocked by this but also impressed by the feat. Seraphal, Sona's elder sister, was watching the scene with shock but also with admiration, if the stars shining in her eyes were any indications. Lord and Lady Phoenix were becoming more and more concerned for their son as he was mercilessly beaten by Death's nephew, and they both turned to the primordial deity whose face didn't show any emotion as she watched her little MSTR beating the CRP out of the prick. "Milady, please. Tell your nephew to stop." Lady Phoenix inquired the deity with tearful eyes. "Why should I? Your son deserves what he is enduring." Muerte coldly responded without taking her eyes away from the fight. "Please, I beg you, Rias is still our son," Lord Phoenix inquired the primordial deity. "Take this as your punishment for never being there to restrain his ego." Muerte coldly replied, still taking her eyes off the fight. Her answer caused Lady Phoenix to shed tears of regret, and her husband instantly went to comfort her. Lord Gremory, who was their friend, couldn't retain himself from speaking. "Milady, please, you aren't seriously thinking of letting your nephew kill young Rias?" He then froze in terror when the primordial deity released a bit of her aura while glaring up at him, as around them, everyone were now shaking in fright. "Pray tell, why would I stop him, Zeoticus Gremory?" Muerte asked him in a deep feminine voice filled with contained anger and coldness. The head of Gremory clan looked away, not having an answer for that. Rias, internally, felt good at seeing her father in such a position, as it was because of him and her mother that he had been engaged to Rias in the first place. "In my opinion, you aren't a better parent than the Phoenix engaging your own daughter to such a some tsk disgusting." The deity's new words caused Lady Venelana to cry in shame and remorse, while Zeoticus Gremory, her husband, instantly tried to comfort her as himself was feeling remorseful. "However, I'm sure Harry won't kill your precious son, merely teach him a lesson but not kill him," Muerte inquired in her normal tone, and those words caused Rias's parents to sigh slightly in relief. Back to the arena, Harry stopped his vicious attack to stare at the bruised form of Rias, who weakly raised his head to look at him. "Please, enough," the Phoenix blonde man managed to say in a pained tone. However, to his horror, the Werlion grinned at him darkly. "Don't worry, it's almost over." After he said this, without warning, Harry grabbed Rias by the legs before smashing him against the floor repeatedly, much to the horror of those who watched, even if Akeno was aroused by her crush's actions. You knew Harry-kun could be so cruel, Fufufu, the priestess of thunder remarked with a grin as she licked her lips. Sadly for her, everyone ignored her comments as they were too busy watching Harry mercilessly smashing Rias around. Ravel was now even more concerned for her older brother, and without thinking, she summoned her wings of fire before flying straight toward the two fighters. Ravel-chan. Her mother called out for her, but Ravel ignored it to keep going. Unaware of the coming blonde girl, Harry threw his opponent to the ground before standing above him with bared teeth. Rias was in a world of pain and was so exhausted and bruised that he couldn't even lift a finger. He defenselessly stared at the 10 feet tall werlion standing beside him. How can I be defeated? Why is my body taking so long to heal? He weakly asked to himself, but Harry heard him. You may have the power to regenerate, but it only works when you are in your prime. When you're tired yourself, your ability became weaker, that's why your wounds is taking long to heal, Harry calmly explained to him. Rias stayed silent for a moment but then looked back at his opponent with a defeated look on his face. Go on, finish me. Harry was about to say respond when a new voice caught his attention. No. To Ho's shock, he saw Ravel Phoenix placing herself in front of him with a look of determination mixed with fear as she stared up at him. It was clear that she was afraid of him but tried to now show it to stand protectively in front of her bruised brother. Please don't kill him. He might not be perfect, but he is still family. Ravel's eyes were shedding tears and Harry's expression softened as he gazed down at her. For a moment nothing happened, as on the stage, everyone were holding their breaths, unsure of what was going to happen next. Lady and Lord Phoenix were staring at their daughter with proud look on their faces but also in fear that she somehow angered the black creature. Ravel watched the werlion for a moment before closing her eyes in fright when he extended an furred arm toward her. Ravel waited for the pain, but it never came, as instead she felt something gently patting the top of her head. Blinking in confusion, she looked up to see the black humanoid lion staring at her with a soft smile. I never planned to kill your brother, kiddo, Harry began to say before adding seriously, but I have one more thing to do first. Ravel watched as the black werlion walked past her to stand above the fallen form of her older brother who had passed out due to pain. Harry gazed down at him with an unreadable expression before looking back toward where the stage was, earning flinch of fear from the crowd of devils. I am done hiding now, it's time for the world to know who I am. As he said those words, Harry fully released his aura, which caused everyone present, less Rias, who was unconscious, to fell on their knees because of the pressure. The mouse, at first shocked by the sudden action, tried to fight back but in vain as, like everyone, they had no choice but to be on their knees. Everyone in hell felt the powerful aura and froze in fear at whoever unleashed it. But the residents of hell weren't the only ones to feel this aura. Far away from there, a tall man appearing to be in his 20s with an average build, black hair, golden bangs and black goatee, flinched when he felt the aura. He was Azazel, the leader of the fallen angel faction. What is that? He asked to himself as he sat on a throne-like chair. In Kyoto, a young woman with a voluptuous figure and very long blonde hair with matching eyes also froze dead in her tracks as she felt a powerful aura coming from somewhere. She was Yasaka, the leader of the West Yukai faction. Mama? Aren't you coming? A young voice called out from another room. I'm coming, Kuna-chan. Yasaka called out to her daughter before thinking to herself. Who could possess such a powerful power? At Peveril Mansion, Ophis, who was about to enter the residence to visit her mate, stopped dead in her track when she felt his aura. Behind her was an appealing woman with straight and long pale blue hair, dark blue eyes, who was wearing a navy blue skirt with her entire body is doused with the color of deep blue. Harry Kyn, the infinite dragon, inquired with a soft purr. So that's your mate's power? Her comrade asked her with a neutral tone. Yes. Now I have another good reason to see him in person, the unknown blue-haired woman inquired to her comrade as they went back inside the mansion to wait for Harry. Back to hell, Harry, still in his werlion form, looked at everyone before opening his mouth to the sky to release a thunderous roar which echoed throughout the underworld. In the stage, everyone were frozen in fright when Harry unleashed both his aura and a frightening roar. Muerte smirked as she realized what this meant. Harry was no more hiding. He decided to show the world that he should never be crossed. Ravel Phoenix, who was standing near the Whirlion, had her hands covered her ears, but her eyes were still watching him with admiration and a bit of fear. Internally, she was glad to have chosen to not fight him, as he proven to be really stronger than she thought he was. When Harry stopped roaring, he also stopped releasing his aura, which caused everyone to gasp loudly for air before looking back at him with frightened eyes. "Come on, let's go," Harry inquired to the blonde girl as he picked up the inn's conscious form of Riser before putting it on his shoulder. Ravel used her wings to fly after him, and the two made their way toward the stage, where they were greeted by Rias, her peerage, Muerte to Harry's shock, and some other people. Carefully, he putted down Riser's body before approaching, just as two people who might be the blonde man's parents rushed toward him with concern. "You did it, Oni-san?" Asia inquired to her brother figure as she hugged on of his legs as tight as she could. The Whirlion smiled at her before looking at Rias and the others. "Dude, you were awesome." Issei cried out with amazement. "Indeed, you were impressive." Rias added in agreement to the brunette boy's words. Kaneko said nothing as she approached the black Whirlion before hugging his other leg tightly, earning a head pat from her Otoko. Then Harry tensed when he was approached by some people he never met before, but it was easy to guess by their red hairs that they must related to Rias somehow. "It's an honor to meet Lord Peveril. I am Sirzex Lucifer, and I thank you for helping my baby sister." Harry nodded at him respectfully before turning his gaze toward the other two people. The brown-haired appealing woman looked just like Rias except older, and the man had a small beard. They must be Rias's parents. His suspicions were confirmed when Rias looked at the last two with a bit of coldness. "Mother-father." The two flinched slightly, and the brown-haired woman, Lady Gremory, looked hurt by her daughter's cold greeting but said nothing, as she felt that she deserved it. While Lady Gremory looked hurt, Lord Gremory turned his head to look at the Whirlion towering him. "Young man, I want to thank you for helping our daughter. We thought that marrying him with Riser was a good manner to show our friendship to the Phoenix clan. We made a mistake." Harry listened in silence, his expression unreadable. Then Lord Gremory said something that caught him off guard. "Because you helped our daughter, House Gremory is now in your debt. You can ask us anything." The Whirlion frowned deeply before looking at his friends who were waiting for his answer. "You owe me nothing. I did it because I care for my friends, all of them, and I would gladly do it again if one of them found himself or herself in such a situation." Hearing those words, Rias, Sona and their respective peerage smiled in appreciation and felt touched by how much he cared for them. Sirzex and Graphia themselves smiled, and they both admired this young man's loyalty. Lady Gremory smiled softly at the group as internally she was overjoyed that her daughter got such a powerful and loyal friend to help her, while her husband's expression was neutral. "Lord Peveril." Harry turned his head with a sigh. He really hated to be called by his title. But he had no choice but to answer accordingly. He turned his head to see two people approaching him, Ravel and an old woman who looked like her. It was Lady Phoenix. "Ravel, Lady Phoenix," Harry responded with a respectful nod, which caused Ravel to turn her head away with a small blush. "Lord Peveril, I wanted to thank you for sparing my youngest son," Lady Phoenix said to the young lord, who shrugged. "You don't have to. I might be a monster, but I'm not a killer." At his answer, his friends looked at him with narrowed eyes, as they didn't like how he qualified himself, and Akeno slapped him on the weight while Kaneko punched his leg. "You are not a monster, Harry-kun." Rias's queen inquired fiercely to her crush with a fire in her eyes. "You are a strong, powerful and loyal friend," Kiba added as he stood beside Tsubaki. "And we are proud to have you by our side." Rias followed with a stern look on her face. "Even if your pranks are annoying," Issei began to say before being punched in the guts by Kaneko. "OW. Shut up, perv." Harry grinned at his Otoko before using a hand to conjure a bag of sweets. "For you, Kaneko-chan." "Arigato." The petite white-haired girl inquired to her Otoko as she grabbed the bag of sweets from him. "I'm proud of you, Harry." Turning his head, the Werlion saw Muerte approaching him with a warm smile on her face. "Aunt Mu, why did you come here?" "Not that I mind, of course." Harry said the last part quickly after saying his honorable aunt's narrowed eyes. I wanted to see my favorite little nephew." "Is that a crime?" "I am your only nephew," Harry remarked to her with a deadpan expression. "So?" Harry sighed deeply in annoyance while Muerte giggled in pure amusement. "You know, it's a shame Hedwig isn't here." Just as she yelled/spoke the phoenix's name, Hedwig appeared in the green sky in a burst of flame, singing. The devils present all panicked at the sight of the light creature while Ravel looked at the magnificent bird with stars in her eyes. After all, it wasn't every day you get to see a live phoenix. The white bird flied straight toward Harry before landing on his right shoulder. "Hey girl," Harry cooed as he used one of his left hand to pet the phoenix's head, earning a chirp of content from Hedwig. Rias and her peerage looked at the reunion with soft smiles on their faces while everyone else looked at them with disbelief or amazement. Sona and her peerage were among those people. Seraphal Leviathan, herself, was shocked by the sudden appearance of the majestic bird but would be lying to herself if she said it was not a sight to see. "Lord Peveril. Is this phoenix yours?" Surzex asked the Werlion with a calm tone filled with curiosity. "Yes, this is Hedwig, my familiar and friend for many years." Every devil stared at Harry with shock and disbelief as if wasn't every day that someone got a phoenix as a familiar. The white royal phoenix, for her part, eyed everyone around her suspiciously until her amber eyes landed on Asia, who smiled at her brightly. "Hey Hedwig," the blonde nun called out with a wave, and the phoenix greeted her back with a soft song. Then Hedwig noticed another blonde girl watching her and turned her head to face her. Ravel gasped softly when the majestic bird looked at her before turning her head to look at Harry. "Can I?" The Werlion grinned before extending his left arm as he lowered down a bit. Understanding the message, Hedwig flied away from her MSTR's shoulder to land on his arm, facing an amazed Ravel who slowly extended a hand toward the bird. Hedwig looked at it for a moment before gently pressing her beak against it, allowed the blonde phoenix to touch her. "She is so soft and pretty," Ravel commented softly as she caressed the phoenix's head, and hearing this, Hedwig ruffled her feathers as she stood proud and tall. "Yes, she is, but fair warning, she can be a bit weird sometimes." Hedwig screeched at him in protestation as she glared him with indignation. "You are." Huffing, Hedwig decided to fly away from her MSTR to land near Asia, who instantly caressed her feathers. "Traitor," Harry inquired as he sent a small glare toward his familiar while everyone laughed at the comical scene before them. "Way to go, Featherball. Teach this PP cat a lesson." Issei commented as he laughed loudly. But then he froze when a growl echoed nearby and he gulped in fright when he saw Harry glaring at him. "Issei, you better run now." "Hold on, bud. You aren't seriously thinking about." "I say run." As he screamed the last word, Harry's body changed and the brunette boy's eyes widened in fright when he saw a 13 feet tall black lion roaring at him. "Ah!" Issei screamed loudly before dashing away as fast as he could. Harry shot a grin at his friends before roaring loudly and running after the brunette boy, who screamed in fright when he saw the lion going after him. "Nice kitty. Nice kitty. Don't kill me." The devils and Muerte all laughed as they watched Harry chasing after Issei like a cat with a mouse. Heck, even Hedwig was amused by the scene as she was being spoiled rotten by both Asia and Ravel. Time skip. After 2 hours of pursing Issei, Harry had transformed back to his human form and had been properly introduced to Rias's family. Lady Gremory was a really nice and appealing person, and it was now easy to understand where Rias got her good looks, and Lord Gremory, well, he was an agreeable man. Harry couldn't bring himself to totally like the two, but at least he had appreciated seeing Lady Venelana. Surzex had showed him that he was indeed a siscon as he hugged Rias tightly a few minutes after he stopped chasing Issei. It had been enjoyable to see Rias trying to escape her older brother's grip on her. She had tried to call for help, but he, like everyone else, all shook their heads in refusal. Gryffindor had been the one to stop Rias' torture as she slapped the back of her husband's head, and Harry had laughed at the scowl he received afterwards. He ever got to meet Milikas, Cerzex's son, and he had to admit he was a good kid. The little boy had asked him many questions and Harry wholeheartedly answered him. Hedwig had been a great attention subject as many devils were still looking at her with fear except for Ravel, who had been given to her mother after Riser's defeat. She and Asia seemed to grew close to each other, and Harry had to admit they were kinda cute together as the two spoiled his familiar. Cerzex asked him some questions and Harry, with Muerte's agreement, told them about his past, and to say they were pissed was saying that the sky was blue. Lady Venelana had been particularly motherly to him, and he had glared at Rias when she giggled at him with amusement. After some hours passed in hell, Harry had to go back home or else the house elves would start to freak out. Sarah Fall, however, had shocked a lot of people by hugging his waist, childishly stating that he wouldn't going anywhere. Sona had tried to help, but it was futile. So he had no choice but to use his natural charm against her by using his gentleman behavior. It worked to the perfection, even if he left a blushing Sarah Fall. Unknown to him, he had accidentally caught the heart of one of the four mouse. Muerte had menaced the mouse to not do anything to her nephew or asking questions, and they hastily agreed, no wanting to be killed by the primordial deity. She had left 1 hour after the end of the fight but had promised to see her nephew again in the future. Harry returned to Peveril Mansion with the help of Hedwig while his friends decided to stay in hell for a while. When he landed before the doors of his home, he thought about getting a long rest, but it was quickly pushed away. But those thoughts were pushed away when he entered his room. "Hello, Harry Cohen." He froze dead in the front door when he saw Ophis and Rainier sitting on his bed along with a appealing pale blue-haired woman he never met before. "Hey Ophis," he began to say nervously when the infinite dragon turned human approached him. "What's wrong? You look so tense, maybe we can help you." Ophis's words caused him to blush a bit because he knew what she was secretly offering. Who is this lovely woman?" he said in an attempt to change the subject. "My thank you for the compliment, my dear. And to answer your question, I am Tiamat." Hearing this, Harry froze as his eyes were locked on the appealing woman. "Hold on, you are Tiamat? As in the Chaos Karma Dragon? The one and only? Look like you heard about me." Muerte spoke a lot about dragons. "Of course she did, and you are quite the cutie," Tiamat inquired as she approached him with swagging her impressive asset. Harry blushed madly at hearing this and didn't have the time to come up with an answer as the Chaos Dragon kissed him on the lips. Her lips were soft, even softer than Ophis's or Rainier's. Slowly, he returned the gesture and Tiamat internally smiled as she wrapped her arms around to pull him closer to her. Rainier watched the scene in silence as she waited for the two to break up while Ophis was getting a bit impatient as Tiamat was hogging him for herself. For a minute the two kissers stayed like this until they pulled away from each other, panting. "You are right, Ophis, he really is a good kisser." Harry blushed again at those words when he felt a hand on his cheek and turned his head only to be kissed again fiercely by Rainier. Blinking in surprise, he barely had the time to return the gesture that she pulled herself away before winking at him seductively. "So Lady Tiamat, may I ask why are you here?" "Oh, Ophis talked a lot about you and I was curious, and seeing you right now, I don't regret my decision," Tiamat responded to him before looking at Ophis and adding, "Would you mind adding me in your little HRM?" Of course, the infinite dragon responded to her with a soft smile. "Don't I get a say in this?" "No," the three women responded at the same time with a grin, and he sighed deeply in response. "You women will be the death of me," he grumbled under his breath before slowly climbing on his bed. He had taken a quick shower back at the Gremory domain after Rias teasingly told him that he smelt. After changing her hair blue, he went to the shower with a grin as the heiress couldn't stop banging at the door, ordering him to make her hair back to normal. Akeno had wanted to come in just to see him naked and had been disappointed when she had been denied again. She hadn't stopped kissing him after the fight with Riser, and Cerzex even asked him if they were together. However, Harry barely had the time to make himself comfortable on his large-sized bed. Then the three women climbed after him before dog-pilling him. To Harry's shock, they were all naked. "Huh, what are you doing?" he asked them with a red face, and Ophis was the one to answer with a grin on her cute face. "Sleeping with you, love." Of course, when she finished talking, she kissed his lips passionately and he couldn't help but return it, much to her enjoyment. As he pulled himself away, he felt something licking his right cheek and slightly turned his head to see Tiamat winking at him seductively. Then he flinched when he felt a hand touched his pee-pee and glared at a certain fallen angel. "Rainier." "Yes, Harry-kun," she responded with an innocent tone. "No, tonight. HMPF, you are no fun." Instantly the hand disappeared and Harry sighed deeply as he putted his head further into the pillow before slowly closing his eyes to rest for a bit. Tiamat, Ophis and Rainier looked at him with smiles before following him as they enveloped his body with their arms, cuddling him. Poor Harry was unaware of what he was about to endure, as more girls will join the equation thanks to him releasing his aura. In hell, Akeno shivered as she thought that she was missing something. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Asian Lion Heart 310 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.